Federal government secures a leave to appeal against UK court order on death case.
We can no longer be harassed by PND. At least in the next 60 days, when we would have been able to meet the cost condition.
President Buhari assures development partners of efficient utilization of intervention funds.
Key players strategize on closing the funding gaps in the power sector towards enhanced service delivery.
We will do our utmost best to establish the appropriate policies.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall focus our attention on the rising addiction to gambling amongst the population.
Nigeria may be known as having Africa's biggest economy and being the world's 12th largest producer and 8th largest exporter of petroleum. But it is also very well known for its long-time romance with gambling, which mainly comprises sports betting, pools, charity-based lotteries, and many more. And of course, some selected land casino games.
Well, let's have a good understanding of what gambling is all about, Kirian, before we proceed. Now, the commonest definition of gambling is that of something laid, staked, or pledged, typically between two parties on the outcome of a contest or contingent issue. Now, gambling is, of course, one of the most insidious of human vices, as it represents the illusion of easy money, yet can quickly lead to a financial ruin.
Yes, indeed, Kingsley. Betting, incidentally, is considered a form of gambling as an organized commercial activity between two parties. And in this case, you have one that predicts an outcome and places a bet, and the other who either forfeits the bet or pays the agreed money to the player. Interestingly, just like gambling is a diverse activity, so do different types of gambling addiction exist.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kirian. Now, gambling addiction can occur when a person feels that they are in financial crisis and can only solve their problems through gambling whatever little they have in an attempt to get a large sum of money. Of course, playing on their luck and the game of chance. Unfortunately, this usually leads to a cycle in the efforts to win back their losses, and the cycle goes on until the person is forced to seek rehabilitation to break the habit. Now, apart from the desperation for money, of course, there are other factors such as the desire to experience thrills and highs, the social status usually being associated with a successful gambler, and the entertaining atmosphere of the mainstream gambling scene. Of course, you find that in casinos. But unfortunately, once a gambling addiction takes hold, I tell you, breaking the cycle, according to the experts, is difficult.
Indeed, and the signs of a gambling problem are often the same as the signs of other addictions. Common signs of addiction include, but not limited to, feeling the need to be secretive about gambling.
All right, but Kirian, of course, you know that there are other issues that you wanted to point out with regard to that.
Exactly, yes. And you recall, Kingsley, how efforts to get a gambler to be on set with us this morning to discuss this topic proved abortive. Yet, a lot of people are involved in this hidden social vice of gambling addiction, which often comes with a multitude of emotional symptoms, which include anxiety, depression, and even suicidal thoughts and tendencies. A quick reference in this regard is that of a newspaper reporter actually about a middle-aged man in Yenagoa who committed suicide after losing a bet ticket worth about 36 million naira. More than just financial loss, the social impact of gambling addiction or excessive gambling cannot be understated. And of course, as harmful gambling can have crippling financial and social effects on the gambler, the family, and friends.
Kriyan, there's no doubt about that, and I'm sure that families that have had to deal with gambling addiction of either the breadwinner or some member of the family can attest to what you just said, and indeed the issues that will be raising this morning as to the consequences of addiction to gambling. And in those days it was called pool betting, you know, but it's gone online now.
Yeah,
and
and one of the major problems, you know, associated with that has to do with the fact that they never recover easily.
Yeah, certainly not. Certainly not. And some experts have indicated that the gambler is, in the end, always a loser. But you know, the gambling age is defined by the law, and people who are below the age of 18 cannot gamble legally. However, in Nigeria, the gambling laws, rules, and regulations would appear, in some opinion, to need a major overhaul. And of course, we have the gambling incidents or gambling issues being governed by the Criminal Code or the Penal Code, as the case may be, as well as the Gaming Machine Act of 1977. Now, there is also what has been introduced, the Nigerian National Lottery Commission Act, which makes provisions for the regulation of gambling or lottery generally, as it is referred to. These ones will include the physical gambling sites as well as online or the so-called mobile casino where gambling usually will take place. But there are issues as to whether the provisions in the law would cover offshore gambling. I'm sure you know that, you know, because people have access to the internet now, so you can gamble offshore. So what are the regulations pertaining to such offshore gambling? I'm sure that some persons again are arguing that that is well beyond the reach of the National Lottery Commission. But the regulatory authorities in Nigeria govern both online as well as the regular betting that we have come to know, Kirian.
Yes, indeed. And when it comes to gambling, it's diverse. There are so many forms of gambling.
That's right.
And we find out that the youths are increasingly becoming interested in it. And it has become a daily thing, you know.
Is it interested or addicted?
Well,
addicted.
Both.
That's right.
The interest comes first. You know,
that's right. There are some cyber cafes that you find young persons, school-age children, you know, who are betting online and so on and so forth. And some students are said to have actually placed their school fees, you know, or their allowances, you know, on betting.
And what is again bad about excessive gambling? How does it affect mental health? What are the short and long-term effects of gambling addiction? What are the warning signs of gambling addiction? And how can those caught in the web get the help they need? These are the questions that we hope our guests will profile answers to on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. My name is Kirian Umayo. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague, Chief Kirian Umayo, the Onodo of Enugu, to welcome you to this edition of the program. We're broadcasting live, as always, on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. In the course of the program, we have our typical complimentary segments, and this, of course, will include newspaper review, business, and others. Comfort Amodu has the highlights of the news, but Kirian, I said, Chief, I didn't want to describe the regalia that you have on this morning. I will leave that for later part of the program.
You don't have the ability to do that.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Chief Kirian. Okay. All right. Comfort Amodu, let's have the highlights of the news.
Good morning, Kirian and Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Now, the federal government of Nigeria has secured a leave to appeal against the award and a stay of enforcement of the UK Commercial Court judgment in favor of Process and Industrial Development Limited to seize $9.6 billion Nigerians' assets.
We are studying the ruling from that perspective, from the perspectives of compliance, from the perspectives of the law, from the perspectives of available remedies to us.
Until now, only the voice of PNID was heard. Only their own side of the story was heard. But the last 4 days, in particular, I think our effort in visiting the key media outlets and think tanks, these efforts have paid off in changing the narrative. What this means is that we can no longer be harassed by PND. At least in the next 60 days, when we would have been able to meet the cost condition. 2, it means that we now have a fresh opportunity of arguing our case.
And President Muhammadu Buhari is assuring development partners and donor agencies that anything from their interventions will be utilized effectively and judiciously in critical areas of need for enhanced standards of living in the country. The president stated this while receiving an audience Mr. Bill Gates and Nigerians Aliko Dangote at the sidelines of this year's General Assembly of the United Nations. Nigeria and Portugal have resolved to partner more effectively in the fight against corruption, terrorism and piracy, or theft and other acts of criminality in the Gulf of Guinea and the Sahel region. This is when President Muhammadu Buhari granted audience to his Portuguese counterpart, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, on the margins of the United Nations General Assembly in New York.
They looked at the terrorist challenges and, the steps that needed to be taken to address that issue. He talked about Portugal's support, for Nigeria in those challenges. And then also, of course, the issue of irregular migration and the challenges that that's posing for Europe. The need for the European Union to be also supportive of Africa in addressing economic challenges.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari says the war against corruption is one that his administration intends to win and vowed to ensure that purveyors of corrupt practices as enemies of the people have no hiding place. This is while addressing a high-level meeting on the promotion of international cooperation towards combating illicit financial flows and strengthening good practices on assets recovery and return to foster sustainable development.
Illegal movement of funds from Nigeria constitute a severe and damaging drain on the Nigerian economy.
Reaffirming the commitment of the General Assembly to bring justice and development through return of illicitly stolen assets.
Stakeholders in Nigeria's power sector convened a meeting at the Kanji Hydro Plant in Niger State towards addressing funding gaps for efficient service delivery and economic development of the nation. Minister of Power, who represented Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, says federal government under the next level agenda will sustain robust engagements for the development of the sector.
We will do our utmost best to establish the appropriate policies to address the issues such as collection of receivable, which has grave implication for the generation and distribution companies, and the establishment of the cost reflection tariff for the sector.
Progressive's Governors Forum has inaugurated a Media and Communication Steering Committee to boost the activities of government, especially among states that are governed by the APC. Meanwhile, the All Progressives Congress has broken the silence on posters being circulated of some of its members in respect to 2023 election.
We are not thinking 2023 now. It is not our concern now. The only concern we have is the welfare of the people of this country, is their security. Politics should go to the back burner for now. An issue that matters to Nigerians about their livelihood should be brought to the front burner.
Let me then use this opportunity to convey the commitment of our political party, all the progressive governors in this state, to take all the necessary measures to roll out initiatives that will strengthen public engagement in our respective states. This is in order to truly give active life to our democracy through opening up all the necessary steps for citizen participation in the process of governance.
The Senate has approved legislative agenda that will guide it for the next 4 years with focus on sectoral reform of the Nigerian economy. National Assembly correspondent reports that the galvanization of the agriculture sector, security, solid minerals and job creation will be receiving priority intervention.
I would like to recommend that we should start that sectoral reform and intervention beginning with the agricultural sector intervention.
The budget must change. The capital must be 70% our recurrent should go to 30%.
Make sure that this agenda works in tandem with the federal government agenda.
If we do not pursue the issue of revenue, of course, budget execution in Nigeria will see a mirage.
Our agenda is set now, and I will charge all our committees once again that we have to flesh up the intervention, the agenda that affects the sectors that we are supposed to oversight.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has called for the appointment of a substantive executive secretary for the National Health Insurance Scheme, as the absence of an executive secretary is affecting the performance of the scheme in providing service to Nigerians.
Can even go ahead again to rescue a lot of situations within and around the country.
Fire and rescue service is for safety, and every one of us will understand the importance of this service.
And I put a question. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. There's subject.
And those are the news highlights for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues shortly with Kirian and Kingsley after the break. I'm Comfort Amadu. Good morning.
The public is hereby invited to the 59th Independence Day public lecture and special Jumat prayers as follows. Special guest of honor, Muhammadu Buhari, President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Guest lecturer, Imam Tajuddin Bello Adigun, PhD, Chief Imam, MCC Juma Mosque, Zone 3, Wuse Abuja. Theme, Peaceful Coexistence for National Growth and Development. Date is Friday, 27th September 2019. Time 10 a.m. Venue, National Mosque Conference Hall. Special Jumat prayers. Special guest of honor, Muhammadu Buhari, President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Special Jumat prayers to be led by Moshid of Abuja National Mosque, Professor Shehu Galadanchi. Time 1 p.m. Venue, Abuja National Mosque. Boss Mustafa, Chairman, 59th Independence Day Celebration Planning Committee, Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Announcer.
To the outer framers, the hat tippers, the fringe goers, you don't need to hide anymore. Try Dettol Even Tone. It cleans and helps to reduce the appearance of blemishes caused by oil, dirt and germs, giving your skin a healthy feel for an even better you.
Introducing the new Dettol Even Tone Pink Glow. Healthy skin feel for an even better you.
You don't reach 50 years now. When that program, when they call Village Headmaster begin. None of the program now. That program when all of now they run, go home, go look for my television.
I want you now to formally tender your apology to Headmaster Ali for causing him so much embarrassment.
Now 50 years now. So because of that, we won't get big party where we will start everything for the 8th of October till the 11th of October. Now me, I'm a body invite you now, and my belly just is sweet. Because I don't say all those people they drink my party, then go come drink the tombo again. And me, radio jam they call you now. You not forget.
Imagine a luxury big breakfast on top of the world in Dubai.
To Dubai.
Collins!
Hope you bought enough big milk. Dubai, here we come.
To be one of the 20 lucky people going to enjoy a peak breakfast in Dubai, buy Peak Milk and collect your scratch card to redeem your instant win. Fill your details and return. Everyone's a winner. So keep on buying your Peak Milk and keep winning. Valid while stocks last. Reach for your peak.
You're also watching Good Morning Nigeria. Now let's go business. Federal government 30-year bond value at 150 billion naira as investors oversubscribed September 2019 bond auction. Details with our correspondent.
The Debt Management Office, DMO, has conducted a monthly auction of federal government bonds and a total value of 150.00 billion naira were offered to investors at the auction from the 5-year, 10 and 30-year bonds. The total subscription received from competitive bids for the instruments was 160.90 billion and non-competitive bids of 46.60 billion naira, making the total subscription received 207.50 billion naira. The amount allotted to competitive bidders for the three instruments was 100 billion naira, while the sum of 46.60 billion naira was allotted to non-competitive bidders, bringing the total amount allotted at the auction to 146.60 billion naira. Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Nigeria has cautioned deposit money banks against excessive investment in fixed securities to the detriment of real sector financing. CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele warned the banking sector to live up to its core responsibility of stimulating the economy by advancing credit to employment generation sectors. He challenged the banking industry to brace the 21st century banking by redirecting surplus resources to critical sectors of the economy. And in the capital markets, stocks inched by 1.09%. Equities market closed positive, with all share index appreciating by plus 1.09% and closed at 27,579.85 points against minus 0.25% depreciation recorded previously. Its year-to-date returns presently stands at minus 12.25%.
That was our business package, and next for us on the program now, we'll take a look at the front pages of some of today's newspapers.
And our newspaper analyst, Bayo Atebi, is here with us in the studio. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kerry, and good morning. Good morning, Kingsley.
All right.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Well, we have about 5 newspapers to review this morning, and what is common is that the lead stories in all the newspapers just saying one thing. Let's begin with the Daily Sun newspaper. The lead story in the Daily Sun newspaper: P&ID, federal government gets execution stay order for $200 million. With the 2 riders, UK court grants federal government leave to appeal. Don't negotiate with them, says Magu. That's the acting head of the EFCC. And Daily Trust newspaper, quickly, the lead story is also on P&ID. Say UK court allows Nigeria to appeal $9.6 billion judgment. It demands $200 million security deposit. Kingsley.
Right. Both Blueprint and the Nigerian Pilot, also as my colleague Kieran said, have the story as their lead. For the Nigerian Pilot, it's this way: $9.6 billion judgment scam. That's the headline. And then 3 riders. Federal government flaws P&ID in round 1. UK court grants Nigeria leave to appeal, secures stay of execution. And Blueprint comes with a kicker: $9.6 billion judgment. UK court orders stay of execution. A number of riders there, including granting Nigeria leave to appeal, federal government to deposit $200 million in 60 days. It's a positive resolution. It's attributed to Malami, who is Attorney General of the Federation. Ruling welcome. That's according to the Irish firm P&ID. We shouldn't negotiate with P&ID, as according to the chairman, acting chair of the EFCC. Bayo, let's take this story before we turn to the others.
Yes, which Nigeria will not rejoice at an attempt to deplete our foreign reserve by $9.6 billion. Well, the initiatives in the court is yielding results. The UK Commercial Court yesterday granted a stay of execution for P&ID to be paid 9.6 billion award. The court also granted leave to appeal the judgment, and also particularly for the portfolio company, the Irish firm that is based in Virgin Islands. The stay of execution requires Nigeria to pay a security deposit of about $200 million pending the determination of the appeal. The Attorney General of the Federation, who led 7 lawyers at the UK Commercial Court, said the team is to study the court ruling, and it will also exercise our right of appeal, and to explore legal options that relate to the deposit of that security amount of $200 million. Meanwhile, the Punch gave another perspective, and it says that aside from the $200 million deposit that must be made in 60 days, there was also a demand made by P&ID, which is for its running cost. It was not disclosed in court, but later on, Punch reports that P&ID is demanding $250,000 as cost within 14 days before the appeal to be allowed.
Was that part of the ruling of the court?
Yes, I think P&ID demanded costs. It was discussed, but not mentioned in cost. But later on, Punch said through their correspondence they contacted and they got the information that P&ID is demanding $250,000. So within 14 days. Otherwise, the appeal should not be allowed.
Yeah, we have to get it there very clear. You know, Kingsley, what should be the next step of Nigerian government? Now they have secured this, stay of action. What should be the next step?
Well, the next step is for the Nigerian government to fulfill the condition for the stay of execution order that's been granted by the court, to say pay in as a security deposit $200 million US dollars, and thereafter you proceed with the hearing of the appeal.
Okay.
That's the critical thing.
What out of the context of what P&ID is demanding?
No, if there's been no pronouncement on that, I'm not aware of those details that you talked about now. If there's no pronouncement on that, cost for what? That's the issue to ask. Cost for what?
It is not mentioned in the
court. It's not a final decision.
Yes.
It's a final decision that will award costs. Final decision. Say award costs. If P&ID is not the one that is hearing the appeal, and the Court of Appeal has not. I mean, what has not been demanded is $200 million as deposit.
Yes.
Is the Nigerian government supposed to pay P&ID for answering for responding to the appeal by Nigeria? I mean, it should be awkward.
Yes, awkward because Nigeria didn't tell you to go and to take the case to US and UK in the first instance. So why
the most important thing is right now there can be no execution of the award, the judgment of the award granted earlier to P&ID, and of course the Nigerian government is desirous of prosecuting this appeal to its logical conclusion, and one would expect that within the period specified for the payment of the security deposit, the Nigerian government will fulfill that and then get on with the appeal.
Yes. Okay, now let's turn again to Daily Trust newspaper and take other stories there. Daily Trust newspaper, below the nameplate, NCC blocks 2 million improperly registered SIM cards. It's on page 15. No rift between Buhari and Shebajo, says APC governors. Minimum wage. Consider bad economic situation federal government tells workers. It's on page 3. And of course, at the bottom of the Daily Trust newspaper, we have other stories there. In Benue, 30 corpses uncovered in mass graves. It's on page 4. Fact check, no evidence, 80 million Yoruba live in Brazil. That's on page 6. Daughter accuses father, brother of rape. It's on page 36.
All right, let's return to the Nigerian pilot very quickly. Below the nameplate of the Nigerian pilot, Army extends Operation Positive Identification to southern Nigeria. Begins new rounds of Egueke 4, and Python Dance and Crocodile Smile nationwide. That's page 8. Presidential poll, APC tackles Atiku and PDP, asks Supreme Court to expunge evidence and report of ICT experts. That's on page 5 in greater detail. Now, below the photograph there on the front page showing the Vice President receiving the Brazilian ambassador to Nigeria, you have the headline, Alleged Perjury. Anxiety mounts over Ondo Deputy Governor. That's page 8. 2 persons, not 7, killed in Kogi kidnapping. And Almeto Shibanjo in court. That's according to Timi Frank. As lawyer says, Vice President lacks power to waive immunity. Fed banks, NDIC pays depositors 116.258 billion naira. And no crack in presidency over Oshibajo. Details can be found on page 7. And lastly, former SGF, that's Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Ufote Kaite, dies at 80. Buhari and others mourn.
Well, let me draw attention to the concern of the armed forces, particularly about our colleagues in the media. Journalists have been charged to be very patriotic and put national interest above all considerations in reporting, especially war against insecurity. The Chief of Defense Staff General Oloni Saki, at a seminar for defense correspondents, says that winning the hearts and minds of citizens is very critical in the war against insurgency. And he said that efforts to tackle security challenges cannot be fully successful without media support. It is pertinent to prioritize accurate reporting while avoiding inflammatory, falsehood, and sensational reporting. He stressed that in this era of increased social platforms, the media should be challenged to report issues with a high sense of responsibility. The Director General of the National Orientation Agency also enjoined media to report factual accounts and not folk tales. He lamented that Nigerian media has been taken over by unwholesome practices where reports are allegedly written for profit motives. The Director General Garba Abari enjoined media houses to act responsibly in the crisis of in the consideration of national security and national interest. There's this issue about bad news is good news. And sometimes the challenges for our media colleagues is that when you hear news, you want to be the first to break it without taking due consideration. And you recollect that during the time of the war between Britain and Northern Ireland, Margaret Thatcher said that most of the violence by the terrorist group exists only on the media. Media give them publicity, and therefore they tend to exist only in the media. And we experienced that in the early days of Boko Haram. Most of their activities were always dropped at the doorstep of social media and print media, and they took liberty in reporting them. And that gave them the kind of life they did not have.
See, one instrument that the terrorists use is media. It's media. And they do that. It's global because they want to be heard. They are prepared to grant interview to any strong medium across the globe, you know, for people to know what they are doing. So they also use it to let you know, look, we are here, and this is what we are doing, and this is what we believe in. Without the media, you wouldn't know exactly what they have in mind. Look at what's happening in Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and the rest of them, in Yemen, and what have you. So they believe in publicity, and he gives them the teeth that they need, you know, to really do what they're doing.
But is that right?
It's not right, of course, it's not right.
That's the point. That's the point Bayo is pursuing.
Yeah, it's not right.
Yeah, there are ethical considerations.
Exactly.
Why oxygenate, as it were, terrorists and their activities? But at the same time, you cannot have a blackout. It depends on the play that you give to their stories. You know, if sometimes they have all kinds of bogus materials that they push out. Claim that they have taken over a certain location or they have wiped out a certain community and so on and so forth, and that is reported, you know, and that tends to put the government in bad light. But it's an issue that has to be you know, looked at from a very professional
point of view.
Yeah, point of view.
But you know, a journalist, a war reporter, you know, will not be doing good if he doesn't report like incidents, for
Yes,
instance, or bomb explosions, here and
Yes,
there,
fine.
suicide attacks here and there.
Fine.
And you see such bad stories, make waves in the media, such bad, and you see they have a way of making sure that they're consistent with what they're doing. So
Fine.
the media may not be totally blamed because, you have to report an incident.
If media are embedded in the war front,
that's right.
They report accurately what they see there. But where you are not there, and the terrorists drop tapes at your doorstep, and you take liberty to believe in it and publish it, you are endangering society.
Exactly.
Alternatively, apart from the script, they issue statements, making claims. And those claims are usually not verified.
And what is the consequence of that on the morale of the soldiers?
That's right. That's the ultimate point. Yeah. That's right. Okay, Kirian, let's take some headlines from the Blueprint newspaper. I still have this. Blueprint newspaper, an earpiece there beside the nameplate. Stock market loses 17 billion naira. Below the nameplate, Benue police uncover 9 corpses in Benue. That's on page 16. NDIC begins payment to 154 failed MFBs. That's microfinance banks depositors. Details of that story can be found on page 33. And then right at the bottom of the front page there, you have Oshibajo, no cracks in the presidency. That's according to the APC governors. And then 1 or 2 other headlines we'll take from there. Federal government and EU to partner on effective policing in Nigeria. Will soon resume negotiations on minimum wage. That's according to the federal government. That's on page 8 in greater detail.
Okay, let me just run through the remaining headlines on Daily Sun newspaper. On the right-hand side of the nameplate, to have government raises another committee on 30,000 naira minimum wage. With the right that labor leaders keep mum is on page 36. And of course, the bottom of the Daily Sun, we have APC governors deny division in presidency. Page 11 is where you get the story. Nigeria lost $157.5 billion to illicit financial flows in 8 years, says President Buhari. It's on page 11 as well. Says no hiding place for corrupt persons. Malnutrition will wipe out Borno, Adamawa, Yobe unless, that's according to UNICEF. It's on page 42. Let's begin by now.
Yes, so let's look at 2 other developments. Sanitation is going on in the Ahmadu Bello University. The board of the governing council has dispensed with the services of 15 of its personnel. The governing board, after 2 meetings, approved the dismissal of 3 lecturers in the sociology department. They were sacked over alteration of results, extortion of students, and illegal allocation of grades. A lecturer in plant science was sacked over sexual harassment of a female staff, not student this time. 2 other staff in the bursary department were sacked for the purposes of fraudulent consideration, and particularly one of them putting somebody back on the payroll without approval. There are others that also are on the waiting line that are being inquired after. Meanwhile,
sorry, when you said sanitation, I thought maybe it was some cleaning exercise, but of course this is to morally cleanse the institution. Yes, that's right. And very, very positive steps been taken, because we'll find some institutions try to sweep these matters, under the carpet. But I mean, the best thing is to send a warning signal that such behaviors that have warranted the kind of action taken by the governing council will not be tolerated in our institutions of higher learning. That's right.
By sanitation, I didn't mean every weekend.
I understand. No, just
cleaning the university of the virus of academic misbehavior. Yes, 300 children have been rescued at Rigasa. That is a suburb in Kaduna, in the Igabi local government area. Some of the persons rescued were said to have been in chains. The police said that they had a report, the DPO was sent, and they found that the people there were tortured, and many of them, apart from being chained on the legs, had bruises over their body. However, the owner of the place, who is referred to as Malam, said that they are there to offer the children who were brought by their parents for Quranic education. And he said that those that were chained are the stubborn ones who attempted to run away, but they did not indulge in all those. The police says they are going to investigate, and if anything untoward is found, they'll be brought to book.
But why should somebody be in chains? Why should they keep children, put children in chains as a way of making sure they don't run?
Some of them are from Mali, Burkina Faso, they came across, some from Nigeria here, across the country. They're there. Apparently, the indication is that they are there for Quranic education. But the information got to the police and they investigated and found out something different. But still the investigation is going on.
Rigasai, by the way, is the final terminus on the Abuja-Kaduna rail route. All right, let's take the editorial. The editorial is coming from the New Telegraph. It's at page 15. Cleansing Nigeria's political system. Now, the editorial begins that recently, INEC made no desire to prune the number of political parties in the country. As of today, there are 91 political parties. And much as we acknowledge that every group is entitled to its views and dreams, we object to the idea of forming political parties for the purpose of racketeering and endorsement of major political parties during elections. The editorial also adds that the best election acknowledged worldwide in Nigeria took place on June 12, 1993, with just 2 political parties. We have the view that fewer and stronger political parties would serve the purpose of the country better.
Well, is a contrast between the fewer, the better, and the more, the merrier. The challenge, however, is that we all witnessed it during the last election with about 93 political parties contesting the election. We had the ballot paper that Kingsley once described as a rapper. Yes. And that is a big challenge. And not only that, in the past, INEC made attempts to sanitize the population of political parties by deregistering them. But don't forget that the political parties went to court and the court overturned that you cannot do that because they are entitled to their freedom of association. The question now arises that it has become very contentious, even at the resumption of the House of Representatives just last week. The issue came up and it became contentious in the House of Representatives. The decision could not be taken. But the bold step that has been taken by INEC will go a long way if it is supported by the political class. Ideally, there are criteria for the registering. You need to win certain seats either in the local government, the House of Assembly, or the National Assembly to remain relevant. But apparently, many of them did not meet that criteria, and we cannot continue like this.
See, you know, in every human endeavor, there should be restrictions, there should be regulations, because what happened during the last election showed that no serious steps, were taken in the past to handle the issue of pruning down the number of political parties we have in Nigeria. If you say, okay, freedom of association, no limitations, then that means you and I can as well form a party. If you have a party that cannot win a councillorship in a local government area, what is the party's business coming to register with the INEC and want to vie for presidency? Why not say, okay, if you can say, let those parties who don't have the structure, to cover the entire nation, start from the state. Start from your state. You can have a local party that operates in the state until gradually you can, metamorphose into a bigger party based on your popularity and followership, and you can now expand. But this time around, people will come out, few friends will just form a party, go to INEC, pay whatever is payable, and of course get a party.
The editorial is running at what it described as a circus. You have 92 political parties registering to contest, and just at the verge of the election, you have so many of them bonding together to endorse one candidate or the other. So it makes a big ridicule of the whole
in the last
political exercise.
In the last election, we have 73 of the parties vie for the president. 73. And how many votes did they garner after all said and done? So why allow those parties again to return and vie for positions of authority?
Well, the issue with regard to registration and deregistration of political parties, I mean, it's always been contentious, no question about that. There have been judicial pronouncements on the basis of the law that existed at the time. But the extant law can be found in the 4th alteration to the Constitution. That's the grounds on which a political party can be deregistered. And of course, you win an election at the local government level, a seat or a chairmanship seat or a state House of Assembly, or otherwise right up to the presidency. If you don't have the opportunity if you don't have any seat, then INEC can proceed to deregister you. But here is the catch, and that's why, in my opinion, the 4th alteration probably didn't quite get it right. If states have not conducted local government elections and political parties are supposed to have a national spread. On what basis then can INEC proceed to deregister a political party where some states are still having caretaker local governments? That's one major challenge. The next challenge has to do also with what you find with the quality and integrity of the elections conducted by the state independent electoral commissions. So advocacy, should be ramped up at the state level to ensure that the same way that everybody focuses on Abuja, to be sure that, look, INEC does well, performs well, and elections are deemed to be free, fair, and credible, that local government elections are also be free, fair, and credible, so that if you are thrashed at local government elections and you don't have any seat in the House of Assembly or a governorship or in the National Assembly, INEC can then proceed to strike you out. That is second point. Third point, after you have been struck out, there is no restriction or otherwise there's nothing that disqualifies you as a political party from coming around again to apply for a fresh registration. So it just becomes like a revolving door. But ultimately, I mean, the thing is, the editorial is quarreling with is the apparent shenanigan that you find 91 registered political parties, 73 of them contested for the presidential election, and then most of them banding together and say, we endorse this candidate, we endorse other candidate. It makes competition pretty challenging.
Well, if the authorities concerned they do not do anything about that, then in 2023, we are going to have over 150 political parties
already
in this country.
After the last election, 65 associations have applied for registration.
Exactly.
Everybody just applying. We're just, but of course they have to fund themselves.
Luckily, we are not politicians. The three of us could have applied for one.
Okay. Well, on that note, we concluded this segment.
But sorry, who will be the chairman of the party?
No, I'm not the chairman. No.
We will remove his
I'll be the presidential candidate. All right, on this note, we concluded this segment of Good Morning Nigeria for this Friday. Bayo, thank you indeed for coming as usual. We hope to see you on Monday for another round of analysis on what the papers are saying. Well, we will take a short break, but when we come back, we'll of course look at the issue of gambling and its effect on society. Do stay with us.
The public is hereby invited to the 59th Independence Day Interdenominational Church Service as follows. Special guest of honor, His Excellency Yemi Osinbajo, Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Ministering, Reverend Dr. Daniel Y.C. Mbaya, General Secretary, EYN. Theme, Peaceful Coexistence for National Growth and Development. Date, 29th September 2019. Time, 3 p.m. Venue, National Christian Center, opposite CBN, Central Business District, Abuja. All are cordially invited. Boss Mustafa, Chairman 59th Independence Day Celebration Planning Committee, Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Announcer.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
Helen! Hey, where's your mom? Today is her toilet day. What? Helen! Toilet day? Tomorrow you're hosting a party and it's a matter of my reputation. Even if you spend your entire day cleaning with all this, it still won't be party ready. Impossible! Challenge? You take a Harpic 10X. Even if you use this solution 10 times, it won't give you the same cleaning like Harpic. Its new thicker formulation sticks to the bowl better, removes old stains, and gives you a sparkling green toilet. Wow! New Harpic 10X gives me the freedom from toilet day. New Harpic 10X for 10 times better cleaning.
NTA ETV Annual Expo is here again. This time, it's the 13th edition with the theme Promoting Unity and Innovations in Youths as Agents of Change through Science and Arts. It promises to be captivating as youths across the nation showcase their unique skills and innovations in science and arts, make new friends, and showcase their rich cultural heritage. Join us at the NTA Headquarters Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja from Sunday 20th October to Thursday 24th October 2019. For more information, participation, and sponsorship, please call these numbers. NTA ETV, promoting learning.
We'll start our conversation this morning with this vox pop on the rising addiction to gambling among the populace. Let's now join Abd Malik Adiu.
Well, betting to me is not the best way to make money, because people take it as a way of making money. I, in person, I don't do betting, so I see it as morally it's not good.
To be sincere, after all, the thing helps some people, but it favors some people, it doesn't favor some people. So it's gamble.
It even reduces the kind of crimes in the situation now, in the society as a whole now. Because a lot of people right now have no time in terms of evil things. They have the time just for them to forecast and then how to win and how to play, and then that's how it is. It's not for something like a crime.
Because the way I'm seeing it, I see the way a lot of Nigerians playing it. It's because of the hardship in the country, the color of anything. That is why you just see people paying with 100 naira, expecting that it's going to be 1 million of naira.
It's not addiction simply because once you allow it to become a part of your life, then it will be difficult for you to leave it.
And it's not good for the youth. It makes them to be very lazy. And they become lazy because they don't have anything to do out there.
When once you go there, the more you play it, the more you lose. Maybe if you win, maybe today, tomorrow now, you may win like, let me say 2,000, and you lost 20,000, so it's the money. That's what I can say about that, yes.
Implication is that if you are into it, to get out from there is very difficult. You will see some people that will be even selling their shoes, selling their phones, in order to bet it, which is very bad. It's too bad. It will push somebody to do something unlawful.
Spiritual implication of it is a sin.
My advice to people that do it is to think twice before they go into it, because it's not something that you can write home about. They give you little and they take much from you. They take much of your time, your energy, and your resources.
All right, you listen to the Vox Pop there from the cross-section of Nigerians expressing their views on addiction to betting or gambling in general. We have guests with us here in Lagos, Abuja, Lagos, Abuja, and Enugu. Beginning with Lagos, we understand we should start from our Abuja studios. Beginning with our guest here in Abuja studios, Moses Tinge is a psychologist and addiction therapist of SANEP's Center for Psychological Medicine. Moses Tinge, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. And from our Lagos studios, we have joining us Oke Oduna. Oke Oduna is the Director, Monitoring and Enforcement of the National Lottery Regulatory Commission. Mr. Oduna, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
From Lagos is Adeniji Adekunle. Adeniji Adekunle is the Managing Director of Bet Bonanza. You are welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
Let's begin the conversation from Lagos, where we have an operator, and then we also have a representative of the Lottery Regulatory Commission. Beginning with Adeniji Adekunle, give us a sense. I mean, we hear all kinds of things these days about gambling, about sports betting, online, offline. What is available to the Nigerian public in terms of a stake and expecting a windfall?
Thank you. Sport betting, which I am a professional in, is basically a form of entertainment. You know, I mean, it's not peculiar to Nigeria alone. It's all over the world. I mean, we even just joined. I would say we're even late to this game. So it's supposed to be an entertainment. And of course, like alcohol, like any other thing out there, some people can get addicted, you know, but overall, sport betting is supposed to be, or lottery is supposed to be a form of entertainment. And that is how we want people to feel it, as just pure entertainment. Of course, you win, you lose, it's part of the fun. But on an overall view, sport betting, lottery is a form of entertainment.
Adeniji, you know, what you have just told us perhaps sounds strange to some of us, really, who are not familiar with that profession. What does it really take to be a professional person in this area? And please just use the language that we can understand, because what is on the table this morning for our conversation is an activity that has positive and negative effects on the society, yet it is legalized. Right, and if you listened to some people who made comments during the in the Vox Pop, they raised a lot of issues like spiritual, like is immoral, and what have you. Please lead us more into the understanding of what is not just an entertainment, because it goes beyond that.
Well, I mean, we all love sports in this country, just like they do in UK, in US, and everywhere. What sport betting brought in is the opportunity for people to put money on their favorite team, on their love for sport, or probably their experience. You know, as for example, Arsenal and Chelsea are playing. As an audience or a sport lover, I might feel like Arsenal will win. So sport betting company now give you the opportunity to say, okay, you love this game, you believe in this, you trust that this guy will win, put your money on it. Of course, some people take it more personal and take it as a business or something, but normally it's just for you to get rewarded on your love for sport, or your expertise on knowing what these footballers, what this club are good at. That is just exactly what sport betting companies are for, just to give you the opportunity to get rewarded on your passion. Yeah, we know some people get carried away and get addicted, but that is why we have the regulators, that is why we have the psychologists to help us, and we as a company also advertise every day on responsible gambling. And we have always put into play also in our platform to make sure that there you are aware of your limit and how deep this can get to. It's always with advertisement. We put it out there that you need to be responsible. It's just like, again, it's just like alcohol. People drink alcohol every day. Some people get addicted. Some people cannot do without drinking alcohol every day. It's just like every other thing out there. If you do it too much, you get addicted. Pure. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, Adeniji Adekunle, thank you very much. You have with you there Oke Oduna, who is Director, Monitoring and Enforcement of the Lottery Regulatory Commission. For the sake of clarification, I'm just wondering, Mr. Okeoduna, still speak to us. What are you regulating these days? Because from what Adekunle has just described, it's talking about sports betting. To say, okay, your two teams are playing, for instance, in any of the big leagues around the world, and you say team A might win or team B might win, and then you place your stake. Is this different from what the older generation used to have in the 60s and 70s, and I believe up to the 80s, that was called pools betting? I'm not sure, Adekunle, if you remember, there used to be what was called Niger pools. There was what was called City Girl. There were flash pools. In those days, they were looking for draws. They said which team would score a draw, and then when the results came out on a Saturday, you will hear the result on the BBC. It will be you don't have full payment, half payment, or quarter payment. What are we seeing these days? I'm not into pool business, by the way, but my colleague Kieran is already laughing. So what are we seeing these days?
If I may, thank you for that. A lot of questions rolled into one, but I think it's important for us to start the conversation as to what we do and how we do it. The National Lottery Regulatory Commission was established by the National Lottery Act of 2005. Our purpose was to regulate the business and operations of lottery and gaming in Nigeria. We go about doing that work by setting the appropriate standards in the field, including how this practice is to be done, how the activity is to be conducted, who can participate, and when they can participate. So as to your first question as to what we regulate lottery and gaming business in Nigeria. And why we do that is to ensure that we sanitize the industry. At the same time, what is left out of the discussion, at the same time, we try to maximize lottery proceeds from statutory remittances for good causes. It's important to note that there's a difference between gambling and lottery. Lottery is a regularized activity. It's there to both reward the player as well as society. The Act provides that 20% of all lottery proceeds go into a fund, National Lottery Trust Fund, to fund good causes in sports, education, and other public intervention programs as determined by Mr. President. So it's important that the society understands why there is lottery regulation in Nigeria and what it's meant to do. Is to promote good causes in society. So I think it's important that the conversation starts there.
Okay, still with you, because from your explanation, we haven't actually gotten exactly what you are regulating. And we don't quite often hear about monies generated through your regulatory agency, as the case may be. Now, let us know the distinction between gambling, betting, and lottery. Because in my understanding, betting, is synonymous with gambling. And I want you to tell us, of course, the basic distinction between gambling and betting, and to what extent has your agency or authority been able to regulate the activities? We recall that when the current betting business in Nigeria, came, that there were accusations of unregistered betting companies operating in Nigeria and what have you.
Okay, the lottery is defined by the Act as any scheme or any arrangement that distribute prizes on the basis of chance. So of course, it's a very broad definition that includes both betting, number games, sports betting, because all these schemes intend to distribute prizes based on chance or the outcome of a sporting event. So that is so it's all of these things. But the main distinction between lottery and gaming from gambling is that in lottery and gaming, society wins at all times. Anytime someone places a bet on a lottery or gaming scheme, so a portion of that, by law, is now diverted to good causes. It's diverted into a fund that goes back to society in form of public intervention program. And that's what's mostly missed out from the discussion. And that's why I wanted to start the discussion on that basis, that that's the main distinction. In gambling, it's a one-to-one affair. It's between you and a particular operator. Nothing goes back to the fund, and nothing goes back to society. So that's why we try to make sure that society understands and the general public understands there's a strict distinction between just lottery and pure gambling. Lottery benefits society. One example is that lottery contributed and funded the UK Olympics back in the time. So these are the type of intervention programs that society gains from. And in Nigeria, there's been distribution of sporting equipment. There's been contributions to the health sector in the form of ambulances, funds that go into promoting the police enforcement efforts. All these are public causes that are funded by lottery proceeds. So that's the main distinction. In pure gambling, it's only the sponsor or the particular player that wins. But in the lottery sector, society always wins. It's a win-win situation, as we like to call it.
Okay, Oduna, but thank you very much. Just before we, Kyria, before we leave Lagos Network Center, we're going to suspend the aspect of the utility of proceeds from lottery or gaming, which is the business of the Lottery Trust Fund, and there is a board for that. Gumel headed that board for many years. I don't know whether it's still there. The distinction we are trying to make, we know for lottery, for instance, there are raffle draws. All kinds of companies will make promotions that if you bought a ticket, there will be a raffle draw. You could win a car, you could win a truck, you could win X, Y, Z. And then, of course, the Lottery Commission comes in there to regulate, to be sure that the members of the public are not fleeced, from such raffle draws. But our concern, essentially this morning, has to do with addiction to sports betting and other forms of gaming, not necessarily the typical raffle draw that you find. And that's why I was asking you earlier, what exactly do you regulate? Because virtually every street corner, most street corners rather, in urban centers in Nigeria, you find all these signs. Online betting, and some of them are betting not just for soccer, they are also betting for horse races. I don't know where those horses are. Some are also betting purportedly for dog races. So are all this part of what you regulate?
Okay, let me attempt to address that frontally. Yes, we regulate sports betting in Nigeria, and the way we do that is that we set appropriate and stringent standards for that type of gameplay. We cannot control proliferation, but we can check that the proliferation coincides with stringent code of practices that we require from all licensees. For instance, as you've heard my co-guest mention, there are age limits, there are betting limits. So first of all, we start from the premise that those that are most vulnerable in society should be excluded at the first instance. So you have the underage, particularly under 18 minors that are excluded from even participating in lottery whatsoever. Yeah, the codes of practices that we require our licensees to abide by, we vet to ensure that they have internal processes to prevent underage participation. They shouldn't even be in any lobbying hall at all. Okay, so that's where we start from. Secondly, we now stringently monitor compliance with those codes of practices, as long as there are our own regulations that require that that there are limits to placing bets. There are limits to allowing unbridled participation. For instance, you have sometimes a situation where somebody wants to play and bet numerous instances in one day within a short amount of time. We make sure that this practice is not allowed. And that is what we do in terms of checking. Now, we've enhanced our own internal structure to be able to now monitor this kind of vulnerable activity, as we talk, or as we address in the responsible gaming, by making sure that we've doubled up our efforts, we've fortified our internal monitoring and enforcement department to ensure that we have the capacity to be on the street to monitor exactly what is going on. That we don't just accept reports from our operators, but we make sure that those reports coincide with stringent measures that we put in place.
Thank you. Okay, we'll definitely return to you in the course of the conversation this morning for further explanations from you. Now, let's come back to Abuja, where we have a guest here who is a psychologist and addiction therapist. He is Moses Tenge. I hope I got that correctly. Now, some say that betting or gambling is harmless, but a progressive addiction that may have negative psychological, physical, or social repercussions. As a matter of fact, is also referred to as an impulse control disorder. What do you make of this?
Thank you very much. Betting, to put the thing straight, betting is a form of gambling, and that applies to all the other ones. They are all forms of gambling. It involves you placing money and predicting that something, an event, would happen. So it's actually an uncertainty. You're not sure of it, but you hope it happens, and you place money on it. So betting, in whatever form that it comes, is still a form of gambling. So while it is a form of entertainment and meant for fun and like a game, the addiction part of it comes where someone no longer has control over his or her own behavior. So it's actually a behavioral addiction. Unlike substances like alcohol, cocaine, and the rest that people get addicted to, which are quite common and everybody understands them, gambling is a behavioral one, meaning it does not involve any substance. So, but the brain still operates the same thing. It's still a brain disease if it becomes an addiction. So where you no longer have control over your actions, not like you bet and you lose, or you bet and win, and later on again you bet again, and then you continue. And even when you're losing and you're not making it, that urge to still bet is still there. You can't control it. You've lost the control. So when it gets to that point where the control isn't there anymore, and when it gets to that point where it's affecting your everyday life, your family relationships and everything, your finances, where every money you see is actually supposed to be used for betting, then at that point it is an addiction. And it is the same brain part that affects substances like alcohol and the rest that is still involved. It's the reward part of the brain. So
now, the increasing involvement of the younger generation of Nigerians in betting has become so worrisome. In fact, if you go to where we have artisans and, of course, automobile mechanics and allied professionals, it's like a daily thing. Like everybody is involved in it. Why has it gotten to this level?
I think it's pretty. There are a lot of factors that may have actually brought all these up. I think it has to do with the way the society is advancing. There's advancement in technology, and this advancement in technology is making so many things become known. Even the things that were not so common, like this idea of gambling has always been around. It has always been around for as long as man can remember. But I mean, technology has made everything much more easier. People get to know about what is happening everywhere so easily, because of technology. You get the information on the internet and the rest. And then again, the publicity that is given by the media, you know. There's a lot, you know. You have one of the betting organizations have sponsored a particular program that is being aired on TV, you know. It's very popular and everybody is talking about it. And this kind of publicity is actually make people gain more awareness of the existence of these things. And then I think economic factors too, you know, because the economy gets really rough. So people are easily swayed by some of these things. They feel like, well, it's 100 naira and then I'll win 1 million naira. Sounds quite enticing, you know. And because they are all really, really rough in terms of finances. So they want to, I mean, it's just 100 naira. There's no risk anyway. So,
Yeah.
and people get to win. You hear testimonies of people who have won, and this kind of encourages more people. And then you see the shops spread around everywhere. So even if you're not aware of it, by the time you're driving, by the time you drive up to like 1 kilometer, you will see one signpost of a shop. So, I mean, with all of them around, it's very easy to go in and bet.
You are talking as if you are talking to Kingsley. The way he's looking at you, I'm talking as if you know you have an idea about pool. You know, explain to us about pool.
I mean, you couldn't be involved in any form of gambling and then have a presence of mind to be on Good Morning Nigeria.
But how do you have an idea about pool and the short payment, long payment?
No. 5 days, you can't be involved in gambling. I'm not a psychologist. And then have a presence of mind to be on Good Morning Nigeria 5 days a week. Then you also be a lawyer. I mean, then you also be a writer. Now, hang on a second. There are historical issues with regard, because that's why I asked Adeniji in Lagos to clarify what is the difference between what went on in the past and what's going on now. As Moses has explained, there are technological intrusions that have made it easier. I mean, if you grew up, you were born and raised in the city, you would have been seeing some of this. It was pool that was common at the time. Plus, what was referred to as kalo, you know that one, the gaming machine that people will pull like this, and then if they didn't win, some of them will attack the machine. All right, let's go over now to our Enugu Network Center and then bring in Professor Mike Ezenwa. Professor Ezenwa is a professor of clinical psychology and associate dean of postgraduate studies at Nnamdi Azikiwe University at Oka. Joining us from our Enugu Network Center, Professor Mike Ezenwa. Thank you very much for being with us. Of course, we've kept you on hold for you to listen to the other guests, the operator and regulator in Lagos, and then, of course, our other psychologists here with us in the Abuja studios. First, I mean, from whatever studies you may have access to or observation, are we having a crisis of addiction to gambling these days, that virtually gambling has been democratized? And as you said, you know, every person that has 100 naira goes in there, and they are hearing testimonies of those who have tasted money.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Nigerians who are listening to this program. In terms of whether we're having crisis, I probably may not say or answer that question because of lack of statistics on that. But as many speakers already said, there are many shops around in the cities where gambling takes place, and many people are involved in it, particularly young people. So if we can use the number of persons involved as we see them, and the fact that even young people are getting increasingly involved, one can, on the basis of this, then say there is some form of crisis or concern. Thank you.
All right, Professor Ezenwa, actually you are in Enugu, and I just had one story, you know, that emanated from the Kenyatta area of Enugu, of a young man who got involved with this, the latest gaming, you know, going on, that won about 45 million naira, and he ended up spending the money or losing the money to the very source from where, you know, where he got it, and that's it. And then some analysts believe that betting is a skill, that it's a skill-based game, that the skill-based game is based on the skill of players, But the non-skill-based game is based on luck, like casino, dice, and what have you. Now, does skill matter in playing these games? Kingsley was just a short while ago, talking about someone with the kind of background he has cannot be involved in gaming or betting. But we have also had stories of millionaires, well-learned persons, who are involved. Is it because of skill, or they are perhaps a game of chance, or one could just get richer all of a sudden? Why are people from all strata of life involved in betting or gaming or gambling, as the case may be?
Thank you, Kirian. There are various reasons why people can get involved. So what is the cause for one person may not be for another. In terms of skill, yes, experience can build to make somebody more perfect than the other because of practice. But generally, many factors are responsible for involvement in betting or gaming generally. There are personality factors. Research shows that some personality may have more tendency to be involved in betting. For example, people have some personality challenges like bipolar. Well, not just personality, also mental health challenges like bipolar disorder, like depression. Some of them may get involved as a way of seeking excitement. As my colleague said earlier, involvement can range from abstinence, recreational purposes, and then pathological one, what we call gambling or compulsive gambling. So other people can also get involved because of peer group influence. My friend does it, and for one form of reinforcement, like the earlier speaker said, somebody stakes 100 naira and gets 50,000 naira or so. So it looks huge, and then the person wants to try. And then you have the media. Like you said, somebody won 40 million naira. It looks huge. And many young people would want to seize this opportunity. Of course, some others will not want to. Some others also believe that there has to be some form of relationship between work or investment and outcome. So there are a lot of reasons that may be responsible for involvement. There will be family factors. Families that have crises, and members of such families, like husbands or wives or children, they like to stay out, and in staying outside the home, they can drink. They can also get involved in, gambling, also as a way of seeking excitement. There is also the tendency of other forms of addiction being related to gambling. In other words, somebody who's addicted to drug or drugs has higher tendency of also getting involved in gambling. So these are some of the things that have been established, through which I can talk about at the moment. Thank you very much.
Professor Eisenhower, let's still stay with you. What are the symptoms of addiction to gambling, for instance? I mean, beyond the recreational purposes and all of that, what are the telltale signs that a person is already getting addicted to gambling? Gambling, in this case, let's say sports betting.
The fact that the person loses control, is no more in charge, and there is significant interference in the person's general lifestyle. Attitude to work is affected. It is a priority in the person's mind. There is a feeling of lack of control, inability to say no. And that's the compulsive component. And that is the pathological component. That makes it difficult. This person now needs help. Despite the situation, whatever the person gets, there is a craving. Like my colleague said, it's just like somebody who takes something intoxicating. The craving is compelling, and the person now wants to discharge the compelling craving. At that moment, it has become pathological. It needs some form of intervention to help this person. The moment the person is no more in charge, then it has become clinically significant.
All right, Professor Zenwa, what might be the final question for you this morning is on the issue of rehabilitation of those that are addicted. Is there any known form of a rehabilitation process that could be applied to, of course, provide some kind of help or assistance to those who are addicted?
The addicted persons can benefit from a lot of intervention programs. They can benefit from essentially psychological intervention, behavioral therapy, which is a type of psychological treatment provided by psychologists to deal with the condition. There are a good number of psychologists in the country. Some of them are in the hospitals. Some are in private practice, like my colleague who is there with you in the studio. So they can benefit from psychological services. Depending on the degree also, some of them can also benefit from some form of medication as the need may arise. And the fact that they benefit from psychological services, I would like to really use this opportunity to bring the attention of our people, the Nigerians, to our call on our very dear president to sign the bill for an act to establish Nigerian Council for Psychologists, which bill has been passed by the National Assembly to regulate the practice of psychology in Nigeria, so that people who have need for psychologists will be seen by qualified psychologists who are regulated. At the moment, there is no council to regulate psychological practice in Nigeria, and we feel that our president, in his usual way, will sign this bill. And if I may digress a little, I would like to commend our president. His speech at the UN Assembly made us feel very happy, very strong.
All right, Professor Michael Ezenwa, well, you're on the platform of Good Morning Nigeria. We're discussing the rising addiction to gambling. You raised the issue of the need for the president to give his assent to the bill on the regulation of the practice of clinical psychology. That point is noted. Every other thing else would appear to be extraneous to our conversation this morning. We would like to thank you for being part of our discussion. You joined us from our Enugu Network Center, the Associate Dean of School of Postgraduate Studies at Nnamdi Azikiwe University. Thank you for being with us. All right, let's come back to our Abuja studios. Moses Tengi, let's still on the symptoms of addiction to gaming or gambling. What are the telltale signs that persons around a gambler can observe? And are there similarities in the way, say, a woman who is addicted to gambling will behave and the way that a man who is addicted to gambling will behave?
Okay. Yeah, addiction generally has symptoms like Prof said there, when there's loss of control, when you no longer feel in control of your actions, and like in substance use, where even though you see the adverse effects of using a particular substance, you still use it anyway. So in addiction and in gambling as well, you actually are playing, you're losing, you bet, you lose, but you still bet, and you still keep betting, and you keep betting. So you no longer have control over your actions, even though you are seeing the adverse effects of it already. So, but for people around you, they can actually notice, when they know when somebody is no longer able to, is all the times looking for money to bet, or looking for money to gamble. At that point in time, you know that there's a problem here. And then, you know, sometimes family issues, sometimes workplace issues, because they are borrowing here and there, you know. So apart from the loss of control, there's a financial aspect to it where you're actually having financial difficulties because of your gambling or your betting. So at that point, it's an addiction. And then there's that craving as well, you know, where when you don't, you feel very, very uncomfortable, you know. You're not happy, you're not comfortable. And every money you see, you think, you just divert it straight away into betting. So at that point, it is an addiction. It has become an addiction. And the people around you can notice every morning you're looking for money, you know. Some can actually get involved in criminal activities just to fund it. So if they can't find the money, because the craving is so intense, they can't stand it. So any money they see, even if it is their parents' home, they'll pick it straight away and use it to gamble or to bet. And when it gets to that point, you know that this person is already an addicted person, is addicted to this behavior as well, and needs help.
Man and woman, are there differences?
There's actually no difference. There's only a difference when, in the starting of it, there are more men who are involved in betting or in gambling than women, anyway. And for men, I think they start much younger, you know, probably in their young age. More women start mostly when they are more matured, but men are likely to start much younger.
All right. Thank you indeed. Indeed, from what he said, some people even sell their belongings, you know, sell their belongings to be able to fund it, just like those who are suffering a drug addiction.
That's true.
As well. Well, we still have our guest in Lagos, Ike Oduna, Director of Monitoring and Enforcement, National Lottery Regulatory Commission, and of course, Adeniji Adekunle, Managing Director of Bet Bonanza. We'll be coming to you in just a moment as we are about to take a short break. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Thank you for staying with us.
Chief. Good morning, sir. You are here already?
No. Now my spirit day here. My body day for house. What kind of question is that? Were you not the one that fixed this meeting for 8 a.m.? You are now coming by 10 a.m. and start asking me jab questions.
But Chief, now, I'm sorry. Don't you also go late for meetings sometimes? You know now, African time.
No more African time. And no more pancaking of face during office hours. At the end of the day, we will lose valuable time. We will not make progress. If we want to move this nation forward, we must treat business as business and respect time. Change begins with me.
Thank you, sir. I am sorry. Can we go for the meeting now, Chief?
Better.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, just to indicate the issue that we are discussing, and we still have our guests in Lagos, as my colleague Kirian indicated. In terms of funding, because Moses Tingi was talking about a person who's become addicted, you know, looking for money from any and every source to be able to fund that addiction. It turns out that there are even some banks, you know, your mobile phone app or your online banking. There is a column, you know, for if you want to do certain transactions, whether you want to pay certain bills, whether it's for cable, whether it's for power, it's for utility or otherwise. I've seen at least in one banking institution where there's a column there for betting and lottery. And I'm asking myself what that is doing there. So if that money goes, as you do, that's what you go for all gamblers, some gamblers anyway, which money will you still have to run your financial institution? But of course, that's a moral issue for the individual to handle. Let's return to our Lagos Network Center. Adeniji Adekunle, Managing Director of Bet Bonanza. As we've said in the course of this conversation, the guests, you have virtually in the urban centers in Nigeria, the signboards are there, you know, people asking, you know, for persons to come and bet for soccer, for horse race, for dog race. Tennis is not common in this part. So, but how big a business is this?
We are like 10 years into the business in Nigeria, and in other part of the country they've been around for 50, 60, 70, 80 years. So it's a decent business right now. It's still growing. So basically, I would say it's a decent business that keeps growing every day, basically.
It's growing every day at the energy, but I believe you're a sports lover, you know, having been involved in sports betting for 10 years now. I would also like to know whether you get involved in betting yourself, you know, as an individual, because our worry is the fact that Nigerian youths are getting deeply involved in doing this, you know, negating all aspects of businesses that they could involve themselves in. Some give reasons like unemployment, some say, like you said, it's fun. You know, it's fun when somebody is losing money and at the point gets addicted, and of course it will rock his family and what have you. Just let us into whom you would expect to be involved. If you notice an addiction, for instance, in someone who is into betting, do you have any provision of course, discouraging the person from continuing, or will you just look at it, well, it's my business, if he likes, whatever he wants to do, fine and good? Do you have provision for that, for letting people know, look, man, this is getting too much, stop for now?
First of all, we know some people might want to get addicted. So we, on our platform, on our website, there's a place where there's a page dedicated to responsible gambling. And we put some tests and some posts there where people can go to and see and check, am I getting addicted? And what can I do to stop this from going on? Apart from that, if anybody is trying to bet on our platform, you will see in your dashboard that you can actually set the amount you want to bet. That this month I don't want to spend more than 500 naira, and this platform will stop you from going above 500 naira for that particular month. These are the steps that we are trying to take to stop addictions. So, I mean, it's very difficult to go into every shop and say, don't let this guy bet when it's above this. But as we gradually move to online, there are shops everywhere. But we've seen the trend that in the next 3, 4, 5 years, in the next 2 years, we will be moving, our people will be moving to online more than going into shops. And that way, it will be more easier for us to really tackle addiction very well. But right now, it's quite difficult. Of course, we're looking at the trends in shops and see how we can make it better. But we are much more able to stop addiction, to help people control their gambling addiction by putting some checks in place to make sure that they don't go beyond what they can afford or to become addictions. Another thing we are also trying to do is to collaborate with psychologists and to see how we can, direct people that we notice that they have addiction problem to see how they can get rehabilitated. It's an ongoing process, and we are also in a collaboration with our regulators to see how we can, do this effectively. So every day we are also looking on how we can make sure this don't get to a point where it becomes an epidemic. So it's an ongoing process, and we are very dedicated to making it happen. That everyone.
All right, I don't need to stay with you. There is a regulation that persons under the age of 18, which is the age of majority, constitutionally, cannot be allowed to bet. But if there's an online platform and there is a question and it says, look, if you are above 18, if you are below 18, leave this page. But if I'm below 18 and you have no way of ascertaining my true age and I think that I'm above 18, what happens? As we have seen that some cyber cafe operators actually now go around monitoring the screens of young persons who are in their cafes, not Yahoo now, checking those bettors and then evacuating them, before they harm themselves. But how do you ascertain that a bettor is indeed within the required age limit?
For example, in shops, our agents are well trained that it's the #1 rule that you don't allow under 18 in your shop. They even get retributed, they get punished if we find a way that we inspect all the time. We send people out to go into our shops to make sure that our agents are following the rules that under 18 should never be allowed in the shops. And in every of our shops, there is a poster, a stickers on the wall that says, which is also being monitored by the regulatory authority to make sure that we are following all this. Personally, it's our responsibility to make sure that in shops there is no under 18, and we make a big posters in every shop saying under 18 is not allowed here, so everyone sees this. For online, before you get signed up, you follow it you fill a registration form that says your date of birth and all that. And before your account is being enabled, we ask for some documents that ascertain your age, so that we can be maybe like a driver's license, your passport, your international passport, and any other valid ID card to make sure that you are actually above 18 and you can bet.
Okay, thank you, Adekunle, Adeniji Adekunle. Thank you indeed. Now let's go back to Olduna, who is the Director, Monitoring and Enforcement, National Lottery Regulatory Commission. Now, let me ask you this. You've listened to Professor Zanwa in Enugu, Moses here, and of course Adeniji with you. There are online betting or gambling that goes on every second. Even as we speak, there are bettings and gambling going on online. And from what you've told us, I'm not sure that you have a platform to regulate those transactions going in the internet. Now, that being the case, is there any platform of yours, regulatory platform of yours, that can actually stop any company from continuing betting if certain regulations are not met? Do you have such in your structure to stop a betting company from operating? Because what we had earlier this year, when some betting companies started operating in Nigeria, we had some of them were not licensed, yet they are operating. If that was the case, how did you even handle that aspect? And going forward, do you have the capacity, or is it lawful for you to stop a company from operating completely?
Of course, we have the regulatory capacity under the Act and our regulations to stop a company from operating. We can suspend the license. We can revoke a license for abusive practices, and we continue to enhance our capacity. Presently, we rely more on the manual approaches from reports and physical inspection. We are in the process, and we continue to enhance our capabilities by attaining an automated system to monitor this, to help us monitor this activity. But we will not be waiting for the system to be in place before we do our jobs. There are aggressive efforts in attaining an automated system, I can tell you, and we have checked unlawful practices or where we've seen abusive practices by coming in and making firm determination that this practice is unfair, is non-transparent, and needs to be stopped. So we've done that. But from what you hear, what you've heard here from Bet Bonanza, it is clear that obviously some of our institutional safeguards are in play. They're not perfect, but they're in play. Errors do happen. The age restriction checks online and the bet limits sometimes are exceeded because of technical errors. But we are acutely aware. We're in the forefront in ensuring that we monitor such errors and make sure that they are eliminated from the process. And again, once we, going forward, once we put in place our automated monitoring platform, that will further check these kind of malpractices. But again, it's important to note that, as stated here, that there is a migration to online. And it is actually harder for the abuses, player abuse, to happen online. One of the reasons is that it's riskier. There are age verification systems in place online that even if you are able to register with a particular online platform, betting platform, at the point where you're trying to withdraw your stake or your winnings, it becomes impossible because there are discrepancies that kick into place. There's a discrepancy maybe from your name and the bank account information that you are trying to use to withdraw your winnings. And we've seen these processes effective. I chair the dispute resolution process within our agency, and I can tell you it's very effective when a minor tries to use another account to register, but now gets into problems when he tries to withdraw. That doesn't happen on the retail level. It's much more riskier. But we're monitoring these kind of activities, and we're happy to know that that we've actually advanced to where we are. We are acutely aware, as I said, about this problem of addictive behavior. That is why we are in ongoing conversations now in actually have these matters treated. We're in conversations with organizations and psychology groups that want to partner with government to ensure that at the back end, people that are adversely affected by irresponsible gaming get treatment. And I think that as a whole will add to the safeguards that we have in place to check this problem.
Well, okay, Oduna, thank you very much. The last point you made is particularly significant, that there is now a recognition that you need to call in the help of psychologists to deal with the back-end issues of irresponsible gaming, which, of course, is addiction that we're dealing with, addiction across, more particularly amongst the young persons and those, who are at the bottom of the pyramid in the economy. I was just wondering, what else is the Lottery Commission likely to do? Because the pervasive nature of sports betting in urban Nigeria, it's one that is really some major cause for concern, rather than pushing the point that lottery, of course, sweepstakes are beneficial to society, but it appears that persons are being ruined here in Nigeria on account of their addiction to sports betting.
Just add, so that the public understands the true scope of this problem. We at the National Lottery Regulatory Commission, we regulate all lottery and gaming in Nigeria. But there are other state authorities. There are local government authorities as well as tax revenue authorities that are in play. They're in the space setting their own standards, rules for governing these matters. Now we hear the problems, we hear the challenges where the youth are now, the youth in these states are preoccupied in the betting shops. But when it comes to solutions, we now try to seek the assistance of these state regulatory authorities to do more, to help us to eradicate these problems. And that remains to be a big challenge. There needs to be a common front. In fact, as the Constitution defines what it is, you know, an adult is, but there are states that have different age limits. So there needs to be a holistic approach, a collective approach, collaboration among the states and other authorities to ensure that we work on standards that we'd like to put in place to check the problem of problem gambling. And we say it can't be done by the states or the state taxing authorities alone. It has to be done in collaboration with the National Lottery Regulatory Commission, especially in view that most of the gaming is interstate. It crosses state borders. We get all the problems, we hear the problems and the complaints that emanate from the states, but we don't have their assistance in coming to the table and try to put in the necessary safeguards. Lagos State has their own rules, but they cannot enforce or check the problems that from where you have a player from Ogun State or your state now playing online from the comfort of his home in those states. So it needs a collective approach, and I'd like to use this platform to call for that collective approach, that we need to have that conversation and make sure that we set in appropriate standards.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Many Nigerians are beginning to react to this conversation by way of tweets, and we have some of them here. Let me begin with this. Nelson Elia. Unemployment is the bane behind the rise in gambling, and the few jobs are not lucrative enough compared to what the addicts make from betting.
Now, this is coming from Mani Akman. It says the surge in the appetite for gambling, especially among the youth in Nigeria, and Ponzi schemes are indicators of a people who have resorted to self-help to survive. Get them gainfully employed, and this menace will be greatly minimized.
Okay, let's go to Mike Anyakwo. Gambling in other climes like USA, for example, may be a habit but not a menace because of transparency in the exercise. Gamblers over their times win fortunes with both men and women on the game. Casino houses are magnificently built and protected.
Now, Amagbala Humbab's twist, and sadly, you can see the torrents of comments that greeted this topic. It tells us how addicted Nigerians, especially our today's youth, are to gambling. You see them play sports bets when they are supposed to be in the classrooms. The sad part is the involvement of primary school pupils.
Now, Utulo Sunday said, to me, it's never a menace. It's a choice, and no one is forcing you to do it. I believe the rise in gambling is as a result of bad economy where everyone is looking for ways of putting food on the table.
Now, Abbas Abubakar Saad, gambling is a form of easy money for those who don't want to work. To deal with it, gamblers need to be rehabilitated, counseled on moral teachings. The negative aspect of it is that gamblers sometimes resort to even sell their personal property just to gamble.
Tayo Rick Akarele, some people or few want quick money. Gambling will still be around for a long time. To reduce the addiction, government should weigh in and make rules on gambling activities, and let us educate our young ones properly on the ills of gambling.
Nuru Baba Konkol said gambling is that act of laziness and totally prohibited in all aspects of religion. Government has to take proactive measures by creating more job opportunities and educational financing, because most of the gamblers are youth and students.
Your latter hit. The Nigerian youth see gambling as a quick way to make money. It's so annoying that many sports enthusiasts and sports houses have been silenced about this menace. The government should bring up sustainable policies to curb these excesses, and the regulatory body should be established to deal with the regulatory offenders.
Now, Abdulaziz Korede says this is a clear socio-economic problem that we collectively as a nation will have to determine how to solve. Now, to get started, apart from coming up with more efficient regulatory framework, government at all levels must take politics out of our education and concentrate on empowering the youth through job creation that will keep these youth busy.
Othaim says that will be most difficult thing to stop now that elected reps are club owners. So let's every youth in the words of Mahatma Gandhi develop a habit of accounting for everything that comes into and goes out of his or her pocket, and be sure he is the gainer at the end.
Olakunle Sharon, Kieran, I want to take that now. It says most Nigerians see gambling as another shortcut to amass wealth nowadays, and it's also a sign of the bad economy. Way out is favorable economic policies. On their part, faith-based organizations and civil society groups as change agents should develop the people's capacity to welcome new ideas and reject unwholesome behaviors that can endanger individual lives and the entire society.
Okay, Prince, well, very briefly, the swelling labor market is an added inspiration to gambling. The jobless youth, some of whom have been applicants for years after graduation, despite the promise of government by successive governments that the youths are the leaders of tomorrow. One wonders how someone who doesn't have the opportunity to learn from the leaders of today will become a leader of tomorrow.
All right, Kieran, those are the views that we can accommodate that have come in by way of truth. We'd like to thank you for sending in your comments. We also would like to, at this point, appreciate our guests. We earlier signed off Professor Ezenwa from our Enugu Network Center. From Lagos, we were joined by Adeniji Adekunle, Managing Director, Bet Bonanza. Thank you for being with us on the program today.
Adeniji hasn't told us whether he bets or not.
Well, he's an operator. And then from Lagos also, we had Oke Oduna, who is Director, Monitoring and Enforcement, National Lottery Regulatory Commission. Oke Oduna and Adeniji, gentlemen, thank you for being with us on the program. Right here in Abuja, we had Moses Tingere, psychologist and addiction therapist. Of course, he works for a psychological medicine center here in Abuja. Moses, thanks a lot for being around with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now, so we're going over to sports without the bet.
SK Slavia Prague forward Peter Olayinka has earned his first Nigeria call-up as Super Eagles head coach Gernot Rohr named 23 players for the side's international friendly against Brazil next month. Olayinka, 23, who featured and scored in the Czech club's UEFA Champions League opening match this season against Inter Milan, has never represented Nigeria at any level. But he joins Raymond Aziz, who is making a return to the team since 2014, as the new faces in the team. The duo of Ahmed Musa and Leon Balogun are both ruled out due to injury and have not been invited. Also, Kelechi Iheanacho, Brani Dowu and Josh Maja, all whom were invited for the friendly against Ukraine, were not invited by Rohr. All invited players are expected to arrive in Singapore on Wednesday, 9th of October. Nigeria and Brazil will clash in a much-anticipated encounter at the Singapore National Stadium, Klang, on Sunday, 13th of October. In the meantime, Nigeria's home-based senior players arrived in Dakar on Thursday for the second edition of the WAFU Cup of Nations, which begins in the Senegalese city of Taiz on Saturday. Director of Communications, Nigeria Football Federation, Demola Olajire, disclosed in his statement that a team of 21 players and 6 officials left Abuja for Abidjan. Nigeria were silver medalists at the inaugural edition held at Cape Coast, Ghana in 2017. And in tennis, Beijing's Amdi Murray is out of the Suai Championship after losing to Alex de Munier in the last 16.
Well, and that's a Good Morning Nigeria for this Friday. We thank you for watching. Monday is yet another broadcasting day. My name is Kieran, and I have a great weekend.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Kieran in thanking you for tuning in. Enjoy your weekend. Until then, see you there.